Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to our YouTube community here on the Free League YouTube channel. My name is Doug. I'm kind of the guy behind the scenes here, producing most of the YouTube content. I want to thank everyone that has supported the One Ring Kickstarter that we've got going on. We've hit some major milestones, and there's more and more announcements and updates coming. But we thought we'd have everyone come on and we'll do a little Q&A with some folks that I'm big fans of and that work tirelessly behind the scenes here at Free League Publishing. First of all is Anna Westerling, the event coordinator for Free League Publishing. Anna, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this. And the project lead behind the One Ring, Martin Takaichi. Martin, thanks again for coming on and giving your time, and we'll answer some questions and talk a little bit more in depth about the One Ring RPG. I'll kind of pull myself off and let Anna and you chat, and I'll bring up any questions that folks might have as we go along. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. I'm going to ask everyone that if you are backing the One Ring Kickstarter, please hit that like button down below. And if you haven't already and you're interested in everything that we talk about today, the link for the Kickstarter is in the description of this video. We'd love to have you take a look at it and back it if you can afford it. And I think we've got a lot of content headed your way, and I think we're really, really excited to add this to our product lines for Free League Publishing. All right, without further ado, I'm going to pull myself off, and if you need me, just give me a holler.
Yeah, I will tell you. Yes, we'll shout. Hello. Now we're all alone. What are we going to do? Hello. Yes. So you've been working. Hello, Martin. You've been working with the One Ring now for a year or so. So let's begin with the book. What's like, do you have like a favorite part, or when you go through and work, do you find new stuff that you didn't know about already? You're like, yes, this little section of Silmarillion is super interesting. And
of course. I mean, yes, there's always new stuff to discover. I mean, even now I'm reading The Hobbit to my 6-year-old. So just yesterday we read about the spiders, which was very exciting, and she loved the Attercop. But anyway, and it's always, I mean, the same thing. I read it many times, but you always kind of discover these tiny little details that kind of it's interesting actually, that because you discover details that kind of click into place with how the rules work in the One Ring, because of course Francesco has already discovered those and he's done something to model that in some way in the rules. So it's kind of interesting how you discover these things even now, many years later.
So you're like an archaeologist, but like who comes to the dig the second time and like,
in a way. Yeah, it feels a little bit like that. You can kind of track his like path through the books and like discover how. I mean, for example, I think one of the like best examples of this is the rule for how you can in the game like rip off your helmet to make yourself get a little bit of endurance back and get yourself back on the feet. If you're in a tough fight with some orcs and you're like feeling you're getting pushed down, then you can rip off your helmet, throw up your helmet, and you get a little bit more time to breathe, which is something, of course, that happens in the books. And it's like when you talk about it, the rule in that way, it can't seem like so the game has rules for every tiny little detail. It's no, of course not. But this is such an iconic moment, so Francesca has decided to model it in the rules, which feels like entirely fitting.
But since this now is a second edition, why a second edition? What does this bring for new? If you have the first edition, why should you have this as well?
Of course. I mean, besides the game is now, I mean, this 2021 is the 10-year anniversary of the game, actually. So it's been around for a while. And over these 10 years, I'd say I don't know, Francesco is 10 years wiser. And the fan community, everything that we built or they have built since then, every kind of feedback, the extra source books, like it's everything that's been built upon the original core book that we now can go through and kind of see what we want to keep and integrate into the new core book, instead of having something on top on something else. We just kind of cut it all down so it fits better, and you can kind of squish it down into the actual core rules and make it smoother and more like cohesive experience. And of course, I mean, with the second edition, we're trying to like the journey rules, for example. In the first edition, these were not like unique in any way, but still they were kind of uncommon for games to have journey rules like that. And while they did serve their purpose, they could also it could happen that it felt a little bit, if you didn't really kind of go into it, it could feel a little bit like it was just a string of dice rolls, and then you just rolled and okay, I lost some fatigue or gained some fatigue, sorry, and so you it could become just a string of dice rolls instead of an exciting journey. So things like that we've tried to, I mean, Francesco is the designer. The idea has been to make these kinds of things more exciting and try to, while still keeping the same core idea, make it more like thematic and it should feel like an adventure, basically. So that's what's happening. And of course, we're going to go through the details of the journey rules and the council in updates, of course.
Yeah. So, but now you're polishing it and you're like making it even better.
Yes. Yeah.
I also there was someone said in the comment here, Olof, did you have to fight very hard to become the project lead of this project? I can't imagine everyone wanting to be that guy, and you feel like when you wake up, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna pinch myself.
We just we did the old. We went together like a bunch of hobbits and drank some ale and just settled it like men by being the best singer. No, but it was actually kind of it felt almost naturally that while, I mean, all of us at Freeling, we love The One Ring and we love Lord of the Rings. I'm the guy who's been like following it since the very beginning and been playing it and having fun with it. So it felt natural to kind of, okay, so Martin, should you maybe take this? And of course, everyone else is swamped, especially Thomas. So it felt like a natural fit. So that's how that happened, more or less. Cool. And it's been great fun. I mean, me and Francesco just this past fall just discussing how little tweaks we could do, and could we have this guy do the maps like Mattioli? He's great, and yeah, maybe we could, and then we did, and now it's amazing. So yeah, it's been so much fun.
So you get to go down in these details and like, yes, this helmet story, or like, and spend an afternoon discussing a small paragraph and how you.
Yeah. In a way, it's like, when you have when you get to be the favorite uncle, if you don't have kids of your own, and maybe if you're I mean, I love kids, but if sometimes it's fine to just be the favorite uncle. So when the kid is like starting to cry or something, you can just say, yes, go back to mother, I'll here with my beer or whatever. And I'm like the favorite uncle, and Francesco, he's doing all the hard design work, and then he comes to me and it's like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome, that's really cool. I just get to see the cool bits, and he gets to be like, yeah, I'm gonna design this, and it's hard, and I just get the fun and feedbacky bits where I can be like, maybe we should tweak this. So it's like a luxury position, I'd say.
Yeah. So even if you don't pinch yourself each morning to check it's not a dream, maybe it sounds like you probably should.
Yeah, a couple of times a week.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So it's a good job. Okay, but let's talk about rules here. I'm going to swap from you to rules. It says it's an updated and streamlined rule. So what's the new thing? And what's the new and exciting thing? Doug also talked an update about dices, how you use that.
Yeah, I mean, the core system of how you roll the dice and how it works, that's basically intact. The core idea is that you have the feat die, which is a D12, although, I mean, it has 12 sides, but it's actually only goes from 1 to 10. And then it has Gandalf rune, the rune for Gandalf, and also an Eye of Sauron, which I think you can understand it's bad to roll the Eye of Sauron. It's bad. It's bad. But so basically, if you have no skill in the thing you want to do, you say if you want to impress the the dwarf lord with an elf song, for example. Maybe not advisable, but if you want to, fine. And you have nothing in song and nothing in sing as your skill. Even more unadvisable, but still. You just roll the feat die, which is, and it goes from 1 to 10. And then if you do have pips in your skills, you get to roll extra d6s and you add them all up. So that's basically how it works. And if you roll a Gandalf rune, you succeed automatically. So you always have about, 12.5% chance of actually succeeding whatever you're doing. And that's the core. And then you need to roll over a number. And in the old edition, that used to be almost always 14. So the number you need to roll was 14 or higher. And then that sometimes that could be adjusted a little bit in combat, or especially like easier or more difficult. But these times we have switched that around a little bit. So instead, what you need to roll is based on your attributes. So if you have great strength, you're going to have to roll a little less. Maybe you need to roll 12 or something like that. Whereas if you're quite not very witty, you might need to have to roll high on your roll. So that's changed a little bit, yeah.
But it matches both the first edition, but also Free League. If you come from Free League games, you're like, you feel at home.
Yeah, I mean, in a bit, they're different, but still, you want since you get to add the dice up in any case, which is different from Free League, but still, you really want those 6s because you get the little elf, Sindarin icon there, which means that you can trigger different like feats and stunts or make more damage or sing better or whatever it is you're doing. So I mean, if you're using the Year Zero engine, this is different, but it's still, I mean, there's still some common ground here and there.
So it's a bit of, I also like when I play, for example, Free League game Alien, that you have like the stress mechanic, because it's it's a mechanic that feeds into the story, because it's like, of course, people get more stressed when there's aliens around. And is there something similar here that connects to the story, except this like lovely helmet story in the beginning, which I thought was awesome?
Yeah.
But like, have you connected the rules, and how do you have tried to connect them to the wonderful book and story?
Yeah, this is really. I recall when I read the One Ring, the first edition, for the first time, I remember feeling, or rather, it felt to me like this is a perfect example of how you marry good rules design with a setting, since it really feels from the ground up, it's designed to feel like a Tolkien game, and it's really, I mean, I was blown away by it when I was reading. There's still an old review I wrote of the game. It's probably about 10 years old now, which is really glowing. So, yeah, it's somewhere out on the internet. See if you can find it. But anyway, what was the question? I was umming and ahhing here.
Yeah, about like
oh yes, the semantics. Yeah,
I mean, I think, and rules in a beautiful balance. Rules
I think
the story develop in a Tolkien way.
There's so much of that, so it's kind of hard to pin down specific examples, because yes, everything. But I think for the most part, I think some like really, I mean, for example, let's take like the hope mechanic, which is also, you have hope points in the One Ring, and this has also changed a little bit from the first to second edition, how you use this, or how you spend them rather. And hope is something you get by protecting certain people that you find important in your fellowship, another player, and you can get it for like good deeds and just like regular resting and like feeling better. So you have this little pool of hope, and you can spend it to try and make better rolls, basically, and for some other things like virtues and things. And then you have the shadow as well. And these two forces like work in this battle by each other. And if your hope goes below your shadow value, you become miserable, and things are much worse. And you, if you roll the Sauron's eye, you automatically miss and stuff like that. So you have this constant battle where because of course, I mean, this game, we know what's going to happen in the game. Just a few decades from now, there will be a great war and a lot of people will be killed, and the shadow is on the rise. So I mean, this is very much not apocalypse, but kind of like pre-catastrophe game, right? It's you're up against something horrible, and you can't really stop it because canon is canon, the book is the books. So you can't really stop it. You can just try to mitigate parts of it, maybe. Yeah. And then of course there are other stuff like being weary, for example, which is another thing that I love, and how it works with the D6s. When your fatigue is getting too much and you're tired, the 1s and the 2s and the 3s on the D6s don't count, which is why they have this hollow outline on the dice. So when you roll the dice together and you add them up, all the 1, 2, 3s, you can't like add them to the whole. So you're like more tired, and then you don't work as well, stuff like that. So I mean, there's so much, and you have the journeys and the councils.
No, but it sounds. Do you like when you feel a bit blue? Are you like, oops, my shadow is too high right now? I need to, go and get a piece of candy or.
I need to like look at some funny ducks or something, and get some hope back. Like, yes, ducklings. Yes, there's hope in world still.
I'm going to let in Doug with some audience question, but I'm just going to say it's going to be in English. It's going to be out in November. Right now, there's no other plans for other languages.
Right.
So we have those grounds. Do we have an?
There will be, but not in this Kickstarter. Yeah.
Not in this Kickstarter. Yeah.
So there are a couple questions. I'll just answer a couple. I'll just put a couple of them in there. Old Uncle Mojo asks, any chance of getting the alpha or beta rule PDF for Kickstarter backers before the books go to print, like we did with the Twilight 2000 Kickstarter?
Of course. Yeah, that's one of the big things. We're going to release the alpha or alpha beta later. I mean, I don't have an exact date for you, but early summer-ish. Hopefully, so we can get some feedback and we can get the game. We can get you playing as soon as possible. That's the main idea, and then also we can collect some feedback on details and stuff. So if there's some like major cock up somewhere, we can fix it before it goes to print and stuff like that. So yes, you will be getting rules as soon as possible.
Red Dual Moons asks, how will the GM be able to handle difficulty for skill rolls?
Yeah, the basic idea is that the target number is always the one that's on your sheet. So if I have my dwarf, who's really strong, and he might have a target number of 12, that's the basic idea. That's I'm going to have to be able to look at my sheet and know that, okay, if I roll 12, I'm good. I'm good to go. And of course, I mean, the GM can change these things. He can or she can like make a little modifiers here and there and remove dice, add dice, stuff like that. But and there's also the same thing in the first edition, where the main idea was that it was always 14, so you kind of knew where you're going. So it's not really a game about like stacking modifiers or things like that. It's a bit more straightforward. But of course, yes, I mean, the GM can, of course, the lore master can, of course, do things to make it harder or more difficult for you. And especially during combat, things are a little bit different as well, because creatures have a parry rating and stuff like that.
John Wright asks, will the Adventures in Middle-earth /5 ebooks, which we have, I know that there's plans to for us to publish those in a future campaign or somehow follow this? Will they follow the similar format that they had in the One Ring first edition?
That's something we need to look at. I know. That might change a little bit, but I mean, it will look different for sure. I mean, this is a new edition, so things will look different. But of course, we still want you, if you have the first edition, we don't want you to throw out the books. I mean, you'll still be able to use them, and you'll make some adjustments here and there, and of course, the setting material will still work, stuff like that. So you'll still be able to use your first edition books with some adjustments. I can't really say about the format. Things might change a little bit, but maybe not too much.
Sure.
Like a very wibbly wobbly answer, like nothing. But
well, I mean, it's hard to know. We're still working on the second edition of the One Ring. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, I will hop out and let you guys chat a little bit more, and then hop back in with some more questions.
All right. Yeah.
Yay! Yes. So now we're going to setting. Yes. No rest for you, Martin.
No.
We're going to setting. It's going to be set in the Northwest, and it says that you're going to play adventurous souls, that you are ordinary people someone asked if you could play villainous types, but I don't think so.
No.
So, but what's the reasoning for this? Northwest, and you play kind of ordinary people. I'm guessing you can be both Hobbit and Man and Elves and Dwarves and all of that.
Yes.
How have you been thinking?
Yes, that was something we had to decide quite early on, since the game was originally going to be a second edition by Cubicle 7, and they had a different idea about where to go. And I know that a lot of people were excited about finally getting some background information on Gondor. I mean, Gondor, right? But we decided to make you all a little bit disappointed and go somewhere else. Now, I know a lot of you like Eriador as well. But basically, I think the idea why we didn't decide to not go to Gondor is because it's Gondor it's very, very it's much more complex. It's like a country at war, more or less. There's politics. There's a whole different thing. It becomes a different Lord of the Rings in a way, which is fantastically awesome and cool. But we still wanted to keep the kind of sneaking through the wilderness and finding a strange frog or something, as you do. So we decided to we thought about different regions we could use, and Eriador has always felt, I mean, as much as I love Mirkwood and spiders, because I do, Eriador is still like, it's such a core piece of the whole setting. You have Rivendell and Bree, and you have the Shire, of course. And there's also, I think, quite a lot of it that's been not underutilized, but there's so much rich history in it. We have all these like ruins from the old kingdoms, like the Arnor and everything. And it's so juicy. There's so much you can kind of start digging at. And of course, Tarbad will feature quite heavily in the upcoming Ruins of a Lost Realm supplement. So, yeah. And yes, I mean, you are kind of regular people who decide to do something to take up the fight against the shadow, of course.
And is that because, like, if you're reading The Hobbit or The Lords of the Ring, the ordinary people is at its core, so you're gonna feel like you are a part of the dwarves going to Mount Doom, a
different mountain, but mountains.
Mountains, yeah. So that's the feeling you're going for.
Yeah, I mean, when you start out in the game, you're competent, of course, and you're still this Tolkien-esque hero, but facing a few orcs might still be a bit of a challenge. It's not like it's not like when the Fellowship go into Moria and just they slew many orcs, because you can just imagine. So you're still, when you're starting out, I mean, you're still, things are a bit dangerous out there. But then the game, that's actually interesting, because the game works in a way where you soon you kind of become quite powerful. You suddenly you can defend yourself in a different way, and you can accomplish tasks that you simply couldn't before. And then the challenge becomes something else. The challenge isn't really those 5 bandits. I mean, that's not the thing. Then the challenge instead becomes something greater. Like how can I, now that we are more powerful, we can actually do something. What can we do, like, for real against the darkness that is coming, that is looming? How can we help in another way? And you also always, of course, is challenged by the shadow and corruption mechanic, which even if you, I mean, even the best son of Gondor can be drawn by corruption. So you're never safe, even if your sword arm is strong.
Yeah, because you also have the adventure phase and the fellowship phase, which sounds also super exciting. And maybe if you feel you're tempted by the shadow, you can have some fellowship phase.
Yeah.
More hope. What's the fellowship phase? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
That's basically it, actually. I mean, since the One Ring has been designed from the start to be a game of you have the spans over many years. Francesco, one of his favorite games is, of course, Pendragon, which is about Arthur, the Arthur myth. And in that game, there's this great campaign which runs for, well, I mean, you kind of skip years. Isn't really, yeah, but it runs for many, many years. It runs for generations. And you play your knight, and you have the like all of the year where you do stuff. You send your little kids to train as knights in other households, and you do things. And then you have the winter phase, which is a bit more like consolidating things and looking at how the year went and stuff like that. And you can see that has influenced the One Ring, because it's a similar thing here, where you have the adventure phase, which is where you go out on an adventure and you do exciting stuff. And then you have the fellowship phase, where you kind of zoom out a little bit, and you maybe you go around the table and you check, okay, so what are you all doing? Are you staying at the same place? Are you are you going home to visit your folks? What are you doing? And so then you can have quite a lot, maybe a long period, like several months or half a year or a year, where you spend your time just doing other things, like like maybe you're just contributing to your village or what it can be. And of course, yes, there's a new fun mechanic here.
Yes.
I mean, it's only me here, right?
Yes, it's
Francesco,
only
he's
you.
not here.
Please,
Yeah, but
my precious, tell us.
yeah, he introduced something where you can try and have your one of your kids or your at least your ward to train up. So you have someone to take over when you're too old, or maybe when you get cut down. So you can basically train your predecessor, or not a predecessor, your heir in a way. So that's a little cool thing.
So if you can play this as a campaign, you can really like play on for a long time.
Oh yeah. I mean, the main campaign for the first edition was the Darkening of Mirkwood, which is the story of how the necromancer retook large parts of Mirkwood and of course Dol Guldur, and this takes place over 30 years of game time. So you might play an adventure phase over a year, and then you have just a long fellowship phase for the rest of the year. And then you slowly go through, and I mean, things will things that might start like a little seed in year 5, and then year 20, this little seed that was like nothing has turned into something, suddenly we have another ally or what it could be. So yeah, it's certainly built for long campaigns where you even switch characters as you go.
I know there was one question in the chat. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but are there plans for Free League to put out grand campaigns for the One Ring, like the book you just mentioned?
Yes, we have some different plans for where things are going. But yeah, I mean, the Darkening of Mirkwood is one of those. It kind of belongs in the RPG campaign Hall of Fame, as far as I see it. It's like it's up there with the Pendragon, the Great Campaign, and the Enemy Within, stuff like that. And of course, we want to try and make something from Free League as well. I mean, when we have Francesco with us here, and Gareth Hanrahan is writing on Moria, of course, which will be big. So yeah, we have some plans, and also we have some different plans. There will be some cool things coming out for you for sure. Sure.
And please stay, Doug, when you're here, because it's soon time for questions. Anyhow,
it's question time. All right.
Yeah, it's question time, and then I can begin with because I have one more, like the.
You had brought that topic up right at this right time, and like someone had just asked, like, is there plans for a grand campaign? So I thought, like, I better hop on just so we can hit it at the same time.
Perfect time. And the only thing but like when we talked about more expanding, like as you say, Gondor is very complex. But like, will it maybe happen if one is truly longing for Gondor, or maybe Rohan or something else?
I mean, we're all long for Gondor, I think. Yes, of course. I mean, we want to do it all. Because for me, my personal number one top wish list thing, which you'd think would be Moria, was actually the Shire, but we now we've done that, so now it's just like from here on out. I don't know, but yes, of course, sooner or later we will get to Gondor.
It will be Gondor. There and back again.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug, hit us with questions.
Andrew asks, might it be possible to issue a frameable poster map if it is marketed and clearly labeled as a game aid?
We might have some news for you there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have some upcoming stretch goals and things, but then we also something we're going to add later on as an add-on, which is actually the map, but as a cloth map.
Ooh, I love the cloth maps that Free League puts out.
Yeah, we love them too. It's something to not have it on paper. It's like something. It's really interesting.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be. I mean, it's the same maps as the Eriador map, and we'll see if we can maybe get the Shire as well. But yeah, so you'll have them as big cloth maps. Of course, you can use them in game as well, but they're perfect to put on the wall as well. So yes, there will be stuff like that coming.
I love my Forbidden Lands cloth maps.
When we are talking about because it must be also super cool following the Kickstarter and be like,
it's like a rocket.
Yeah, will there be more stretch goals?
There will be, but this is always this tricky situation when you're doing Kickstarter that goes better than. Of course, we thought we'd have a lot of people wanting to play the One Ring, but we hadn't quite expected this warm welcome from you guys, which is amazing. But we need to also be careful because we don't want. I mean, the classic mistake of taking on too much and the game gets delayed or more expensive, and so we want to be a bit careful. But yes, there are still a few things coming.
Excellent.
So stick tight.
Yeah.
Jason asks, could we see a draft character sheet? Is that something that you plan on spoiling later on down the road in the Kickstarter?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. I think most of you might have tried to glean some information from that little tiny thumbnail picture in the Kickstarter campaign, but we should probably do an update, like going through a little bit how character creation works and what the sheet looks like. So that's a good idea. We'll do something like that. Yes.
I know one question that keeps getting asked as well is there any are you designing or have plans for any type of solo RPG option like we did with Twilight 2000, and that's something that keeps getting brought up quite a bit. So we might as well just answer that question.
We really like solo play, and the past year has really shown how it kind of exploding. So this is certainly something there. It's not only us. We see a lot of you people like to play solo, and in a way, I think the One Ring, the way it's constructed with a little bit more strict framework around journeys and councils, things like that, I think it would actually make a very good solo game. I think it would be very fitting. So it's something we want to do. It's hard to make it fit within the time frame of the publication of the game.
Sure.
But yes, we'll see what we can figure out, if I say like that, something like that.
It was also asked, I've never played the Lord of the Rings RPG game, so this might be a silly question. Not a silly question. Perfectly awesome question. But can you also play more villainous type characters if you wanted to?
No. Or of course, when you're the lore master of your own game, you can just you can skip rules however you want. But if you play it as the rules are written, you won't be able to, or not for long anyway. You can play villainously, but you'll just collect more corruption, and in the end you'll become like an evil man, and basically become a lore master character. So the at least in the One Ring, as it's written right now, is meant as a heroic game.
Sure.
But of course, just change some things around and it's your game. You do what you want, but that's not the core idea. No.
But it sounds like, in theory at least, you can have like a few Boromirs in the group who's like going dark.
Oh yeah, yes, we do want Boromirs in the group, or no, but we do want that kind of drama in the group. So of course the game is built for that, yes, but it's not really built for being like, hello, my name is Ugluk, I'm an orc. It's not quite there.
Let's see here. Somebody asks, how do you work out the target number in second edition?
The core idea is to, I need to check because this has changed a little bit, but basically you have, it's 18 or 20. I'm not entirely sure which one is the current number, but it's 18 or 20 minus your attributes. So if you have so let's go with 20 just to be on the safe side. So if you have a strength of 8, 8 minus 20 is 12, so 12 is your target number. That's the basics of it, really.
So the GM doesn't need to know that. Your players
No.
pretty much have to know that, and they'll know whether or not they
I actually quite like that. That all the information you need as a player is just you have these target numbers in quite like big bold letters on your character sheet. So you can just like, okay, so I need to re-roll this thing. What do I need to roll? Oh, 12, because it says so right here. And of course, it can get modified, but usually it's just you go straight to the roll on the sheet.
Nice. Nick has a great question. Nick Lemming says or asks a question for Freely Publishing: what callings are going to be in version 2? Any in addition to the ones in version 1, or replacing them?
I think we have all the callings that are in the first edition core. There might, I think there might have been one or two it's changed a little bit or changed their names a little bit. I think the Slayer has been changed. Yeah, but there's like some slight changes, but for the most part, yes, everything that's in the first edition will be in the second edition. I know there's been some additions in the Adventurer's Companion, and these things will likely see. Yeah, they'll likely see the light at a later date in another expansion or module to the game.
Sure. Liam asks, will any backers get their names in the back of the core book, like in
Yeah,
Basic?
we like those kind of things, but not for the One Ring. No,
okay.
We'll just want to keep it clean.
All right. Yeah, I'll let you. I'll back out a little bit and let you.
It's just a short, but you come back soon because
All right,
it will be short. We talked about earlier that it's like so if you never played role-playing game, or if you played a lot of free-play game, or if you played the One Ring first edition, everything is in the. It's easy to get into, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I know because we have got quite a few messages on the Kickstarter, people asking about the game, if it's a good game as your first role-playing game. Like, I haven't really played RPGs before. Is this something I could get into? Is it too difficult? And it's interesting. I mean, since a lot of people start with Dungeons and Dragons, which is if you kind of get into it, kind of a crunchy game. I mean, the core mechanics is easy, but then you have character building, all that stuff can be quite crunchy. Whereas in the One Ring, I'd say it's easier to get into. I'd say, or at least, there's not. You don't have to. Especially since there are very few modifications to the rolls, you don't have to really keep track of that kind of stuff. For the most part, you just grab the feat die, you check, okay, I have 3 dots in singing, and my target number is 12. All right, here we go. Boop.
I like that this is the second time you mentioned singing. I'm like,
yeah, I mean,
singing.
I think, okay, well, I would say it's my favorite skill, but it's actually riddling is, of course, my favorite skill. So it's I think it's quite easy to get into, and also I think for new game masters, new lore masters, it can be like running your first game can be a bit overwhelming. But I also think again that you do get some support here, especially with the structures around the games of how accounts work or how journeys work. Since these can, basically the rules are designed to create adventure, create drama, right? So even if you feel a little bit uncertain and kind of not really sure about how to make this exciting, if you just follow the rules, it will kind of become exciting by itself. Yeah, I actually think it's a pretty good game to get started with. I mean, there are simpler games out there for sure, but the One Ring is not like one of the heaviest games or anything. No.
There was also a question about different cultures available in the book in the first. Yeah, what different cultures?
I think we'll go through exactly which ones, but we have, of course, the Hobbits of the Shire, and we have the Men of Bree. We do have some elves and some Men of the North, and of course dwarves as well. Which I can't recall now which dwarves we're talking about. If it is I need to double check, but I don't want to go and rip through drafts right now. But yes, I mean, or you'll be able to anything that's familiar to you when you read the Lord of the Rings, you'll be able to play. Yeah.
So then, if you never GM the game before, you can still fall back on your love for the Lord of the Rings and just.
Oh yes, for sure. I mean, that's when you have most fun, right? When you're just riffing of each other's little like pieces of lore or own contributions to the lore. So yeah.
So if you lived in Middle Earth, where would you live when we're talking Lord of the Rings? Like, would you be a hobbit of the Shire sitting with a pipe, or would you be in, I don't know, in Rivendell going through libraries searching for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where would I be? Maybe in like, maybe I could be like on the island. I could be like Gollum's neighbor, maybe on the island next to him. We could. Wave, like have a fish dinner.
So the one who dies, like his friend.
No, I'd probably just end up in Hobbiton and sit and make buttered toast. Sounds amazing. Really.
Sounds really.
Especially these days, yeah.
Yeah, or like meet friends, have coffee.
Exactly. Meet friends, hug each other, which is I'm so excited about the starter set. I'm right now. That's like the one thing I'm most excited about because it's so extremely hobbity. I mean, really, it's when I was reading it through, I was just like half laughing all the time because it's just you just want to jump inside the pages. It's amazing. James McElspan. He's like a real life hobbit and he looks like one, and he's really made a great like hobbity feeling. It's amazing.
So can you give us an example from these pages that you wanted to jump into? For everyone who sits home alone and is like people.
Well, I can say like one of my there's a lot of like little small and fun little tables you can roll on to see like different strange adventures that's going on different strange events going on in around the Shire. And this is like one where you come across a sleeping dwarf on a tree, and he has like a half-eaten sausage in his hand, is just like sleeping at a tree. Yes, this is like a whole session. You find a dwarf asleep with a sausage. Okay, let's find out what's going on.
So I'm guessing, you can play both the game as the sausage, the dwarf with the sausage as the big plot, or like you're out adventuring, going to finding new things. You can play it more actiony too. That's what I
for sure. I mean, as much as I love the Shire, that's like it's a very like isolated little dreamy place, and the rest of the world is kind of on a different scale of horribleness depending where you are. So yes, it can be much more actiony and epic, of course, but there is the little dwarf with a sausage in the Shire. So you get both worlds there.
And because you're the project lead, do you get to, or is it like Francesco who's like, yes, give you pages, or do you sit and brainstorm about like, yes, so what should we have in Bree here? Yes, we should have this, or we should have dwarves with or what type of creature shall the meet here? Yeah.
Well, it's basically so this is James' work really. He's been given he's been given a rough outline from Francesco, and of course, I mean, let's not forget the co-author Marco, and they kind of think stuff up, and they give some basic outlines, and then James comes back with lots of cool stuff, and then you can go in and like there's always like, since there's so much lore in this setting, there's always something you discover, like, oh, let's see, I see, we made a mistake here, there shouldn't be any elm trees up there, all right, we have to rewrite this section here. So there's always like these tiny details that needs to go back and forth, but yeah, so it's a collaboration, but of course there's always like one driving force of creativity in there.
So, but you get all these wonderful authors like pages, and you get to read them and be like, oh, but there's elm trees. Or have you thought about what type of sausage?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I have the lucky job of being able to just read things and enjoy it, and try to find stuff that we might want to do a little bit more of because it's so good, or if there's something that feels like it's missing, we might have to add stuff. So I'm like something of a filter somewhere to be like a third, not quite outside, but still a little bit separated from the creative process. I can try and spot things that we need more or less of, or what have you. Yeah.
And are you the one who gets to commission artwork and be like, oh yeah, I want the picture of the dwarf with the sausages, or I want this epic elvish kind of, I want something of Rivendell, or I want the cozy Shire where we paint in 3 leagues sitting with eating butter toast.
That's a good idea for a stretch goal. We could have like Francesca as a Hobbit.
Yeah, they did that in the films where they had, Peter Jackson and Flicka over the mantelpiece.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, I mean, it depends on the product and who's doing it. I mean, everyone is involved somehow, but of course, yes, we're all in the process of giving some ideas about the images. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna get a little Doug because now, yes.
All right, yeah, we've got quite a few questions before we wrap up. Let's get right to him. Steven asks a couple of good questions. One of which is, are there any more details on the landmarks mode? This is something that we're incorporating for second edition.
Yes, the landmarks. This is, I mean, I love this this organic process, how it works in just, I'd say, analog gaming in general, just games in general, how games keep building on each other. Of course, when we designed Forbidden Lands, our journey rules in that game, and how that kind of was a big part of the game, was very much inspired by the One Ring, of course. And then when we met up with Francesco and a few other guys from Ares Games in Essen a couple of years ago, and we talked about that, and Francesco was like, oh well, some of the new rules for the second edition has been inspired by Forbidden Lands. So we just kind of, with this weird, just patting on each other's backs and like, yes, your game is very nice. Yeah, but the landmarks is something that's inspired by the adventure sites of Forbidden Lands.
Right.
Because we did want, because in the first edition it was kind of the different sources, the different supplements were split into 2 basically. So you got one supplement that was about like just going through what this area of the region, who lived here, what happened here, just like a source book basically. And then you had an adventure or like a mini campaign and use those together to create like your campaign. And I remember reading the first one, Heart of the Wild, and it's this amazing sandbox. It's one of the best I read, where you can just move around Mirkwood, and there's always something to discover. And I was just like, who needs adventure books? You can just let them loose here. There'll be like adventure generated by the things just going on. So we want to take that and kind of integrate that with something a little less structured than classical, like not linear, but still like a guided adventure. We wanted something a little bit more sandboxy, a little bit more free, where you could kind of move around as you wanted. But still not quite as free as Forbidden Lands, because that's very much, move everywhere, anywhere, find something.
Right.
Yeah. So we wanted something a little bit tighter than that, but still more open than the traditional model. So that's where landmarks come in, and of course they are very much integrated with the land they're in and the stories that contains it. But they're also a bit more easier to like drop in, as it were, as you move around and discover things. And some of them are very much connected to the land, whereas some can kind of move about a little bit depending on where you need them, more or less. But we do have some plans for other modes of play as well. If you're interested in a more structured adventure that is in a traditional way, we'll have some use for you further on, basically.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anna.
You just mentioned Forbidden Lands. That's another free league fantasy RPG. If one can't wait till summer for this, is playing Forbidden Lands a good idea if one hasn't?
Well, I mean, Forbidden Lands is always a good idea.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, that's very low.
That's low. Although Forbidden Lands is a bit different in tone, whereas in the One Ring, it's I mean it's meant to be a heroic game where you might struggle, but it's a heroic game. Whereas in Forbidden Lands, I mean, I remember the first playtest I had, and I was playing this wolfman, and I had my sword, and I was like big and strong as and then I went out and fought something, a griffin, I think, and I like stabbed it with my sword, and it just broke off. So for like 3 sessions, I had no weapons, and was like, I'm the warrior, and I found a shield, and that's my only thing. And it's a whole other thing. You're a little bit more like desperate rogues maybe in that one, and in that one you could definitely, if you want, play a more unsavory character.
Exactly.
No, get back after this. Let's go back to you, Doug.
The question was asked, are the horsing boats treasures rules integrated in the core, or are they going to be spread out over multiple supplements?
Parts of it are integrated into the core, because especially the things that felt the most important to the game. So you'll discover that some of those things that were, like I mentioned earlier, that were built upon the core rules have now been integrated with the core rules. But some of them might still be in later supplements. So you'll have to discover which ones are which. And I think Francesco has given some hints. But I do seem to recall that the treasure rules are in.
Okay.
But horses and boats are still maybe out, I think.
Okay. Stephen asks, any plans for enemy cards, a bestiary, or any other enemy player aids?
There's something we'd like to do. It's a question about the scope of the Kickstarter and what we can do in time. That's also the question of having art and stuff like that. Of course, I mean, we do have lots of art, but we need more. So probably not during this Kickstarter, but there's certainly something we'd like to do for the future. There's quite a few things, fun things you can do as like supplementary components for the game. So we do have some ideas around that.
Will there be some mass battle rules for the One Ring Second Edition?
What's that name of that weird country down south? Gondor, is it? Gondor? Yeah, I think sooner or later there will be something to be able to use more like those kinds of rules, but it's still a bit further out. But sooner or later, yes, we'd like to introduce some kind of mass battle rules. Yeah.
All right. I'm just trying to scroll real quick to see if there's anything that.
I'm thinking. Before we wrap up, I'm also going to ask you, Doug, if you lived in Middle Earth, where would you, what would you be, and where would you live? I'm a LARPer from the beginning, so this is where all these questions comes. But you're like,
I think I would probably be a hobbit,
right?
Because I have pretty hairy toes. So. Yeah, I think that's.
We can be neighbors. You can come over and we can have like a roast.
Absolutely, that sounds great.
Yeah,
perfect.
There can be lots of beer.
Like to be a hobbit. I don't know. It's.
Jason asks one question before we sign off. How often will you be updating us with the development with YouTube Q&As? We'll probably try to do it fairly frequently. I know we've got one other session that we kind of want to do before this Kickstarter is over. We do try to do a weekly or a monthly Free League update. It's the last Wednesday of every month, where Thomas Herenstam and I hop on and we just kind of give brief updates as far as all the Kickstarters, all the products that are being released, and try to give folks a good idea of where we're at with everything. So we try to keep communication, back and forth pretty frequently. And one thing that even before I started doing this for Free League, I want to say that the one thing that really I really appreciated as a Kickstarter backer was how frequently Free League does communicate with their backers as far as anything that's developing, anything maybe something happened and there's a complication, and so we had to kind of develop this a little bit more. They're really good about I know it's easy to say as we're on the official YouTube channel, but speaking as a gamer and someone that wasn't here on the YouTube channel previously, that was one thing that I really appreciated about Free League was the fact that they updated backers really well on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, we want to keep everyone in the loop, basically, because we do have a lot of things going on. And yeah, it would be fun to kind of turn in here now and then and talk about how things are going. I'm sure we're going to, especially closer to different like production milestones, like when the alpha has been released, or we have some new cool art we can show, things like that. I think we could show up and talk about the Middle Earth.
Excellent.
And of course, today Francesco wasn't available because
he's in the comments now. I think he's saying,
really?
"Hello, guys. Sorry, I missed it."
Yeah, hello,
Francesco. Thank you so much. We'll have to have you back on shortly. I know folks would love to hear from you again. Martin, is there anything you'd like to say to the backers of the Kickstarter before we sign off? This is Free League's biggest Kickstarter to date. We've got over $1 million in funding. I think we're well over 8,000 backers, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Besides, is there something you'd like to say?
Massive thank you. It's hard to. It's such a massive show of support that it's, besides just saying thank you, it's really like a sign of how we need to continue doing cool stuff for the game, and kind of we have this legacy now and really take care of it. And I mean, that's always been our view from the start, but it becomes even more like you underline that a little bit extra, that we now have this great game and this great support for it, and we really want to make it like one of the core pillars in the RPG community. Because I mean, still it is. I mean, everything else, if you not consider everything else, it's still Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. It's like, why isn't it the one of the pillars already? Why? And okay, well, yeah, we know the story, Dungeons and Dragons, everything, blah. But we really want to kind of get it up there because it's we think it's that good, basically, and it seems like you do too. So yeah, maybe we can.
Definitely.
So there I'm back again with Free League. Follow the journey.
Please do.
Absolutely. I'm going to remind folks that if you enjoyed this session, please hit that like button down below. That lets us know that you want to see more of these, and we want to make sure that folks experience all this stuff all these sessions that we put on YouTube. Also, if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate our YouTube community, and like I said, we try to keep communication going. And we're living in a world where we can't meet face to face, so this is a great way for us to kind of connect and talk with folks and to show our appreciation for everyone that loves what we do here at Free League Publishing. So, all right. Anna, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to do this again.
Yay, thank you. I think it's super fun.
Absolutely. Martin, congratulations.
Always happy to be here.
We'll see you again shortly. I'm sure we'll have you back on again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everyone that joined us in the chat. We'll see you next time. Bye now.